on both sides of the Atlantic. It felt true because the political passions of Americans and Europeans had so much in common, particularly as populism emerged as a powerful force in the 2010s. I knew all along that, as an academic, I was part of a specific and relatively small privileged species that moved around from one conference to another without fear of harassment. There were clear limits, in other words, to the relevance of my own experience. This in itself was cause for more detailed investigation, but the real reason for my curiosity was a significant, hard-to-miss wrinkle in the overall narrative. Even as the transatlantic space expanded and became more interconnected and wealthy, it was obvious that not everyone was content. The transatlantic community seemed to be in constant war with itself. I noticed this firsthand at academic conferences. More than once I found myself in the slightly uncomfortable position of having to explain and occasionally defend the American position to my European friends. Not infrequently, especially in 2002 to 2003, when I spent a year at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, I felt obliged to stand up for the French and Germans, relentlessly criticized or dismissed as surrender monkeys by my American colleagues. For a super-neutral, a dual citizen of Finland and Switzerland, this may have been a natural role, but having to do it time and time again implied some structural discord. The transatlantic community was, simply put, very crisis-prone. In fact, not a day seemed to go by without a conflict of some sort. A seemingly irrevocable transatlantic split quickly followed NATO's show of unity after 9/11 over the Iraq War. The prize of economic interconnectivity was felt particularly after 2007, when the Great Recession came crushing down on America and Europe. Its political repercussion was the rise of populism on both sides of the Atlantic in the 2010s. It all climaxed in the summer and fall of 2016. In June, 52% of Britons voted in favour of the UK's withdrawal from the EU. Then, in early November, Donald J. Trump, running on a nationalist America First platform, was elected the 45th President of the United States. I'll never forget a visit to Boston 2 days after that election. The sense of doom and gloom was palpable in the halls of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy and among the faculty of the Kennedy School of Government. Yet it seemed to me then, it still does today, that while Brexit and Trump represented setbacks to the liberal internationalist credo, they were not symptoms of a widening transatlantic divide. If anything, they were indicators of how closely connected the transatlantic political space had become. When I tried this optimistic line on my friends in Boston, London, Geneva, Rome, Edinburgh and Helsinki, they did not find my reasoning in the least bit reassuring. In short, the germ of this book is a paradox that I have observed over the past 3 decades. The transatlantic relationship is a great success story that is always at the brink of catastrophe. The transatlantic space is connected via a tested web of institutions, strong economic links, and political systems that often, as in the case of populism, evolve in surprisingly similar ways. Yet panic about the future of this relationship surfaces repeatedly, almost predictably. In fact, the world of 2020 appeared far removed from the optimism that many had expressed 3 decades earlier. Blatant transgressions of international law, as in the case of the Russian annexation of Crimea, had gone by virtually unpunished. Other parts of the world seemed to have profited more from the opening of new markets than the traditional champions thereof, witnessed China's spectacular rise. Meanwhile, Europeans and Americans were disagreeing on so many issues that a noisy divorce seemed far more likely than a quiet reconciliation. Somehow, this did not feel true, but it did reinforce my determination to complete this book, for it seemed even more important to try to understand why, yet again, this most successful of transcontinental relationships had been declared in trouble, in crisis, or just plain irrelevant. Was a terminal breakup really happening? Or was history about to repeat itself with another return to normal? Or perhaps, I suspected, there was no such binary choice. Over half a century ago, Henry Kissinger, probably the most famous European-born American statesman of all time, wrote, "Thus we face the root question of a multipolar world. How much unity should we want? How much diversity can we stand?" These